Rev up your engine. The Highlander. People like SUVs. This one's the original owner with 218,000 miles. You can see he's driving Lyft now. He drives it all over the place. How's this thing held up for him? Well, he's not complaining. 218,000 miles. He does his own brakes, which he's done. Changes the oil. But that's all he's done. But, as you can see, still got the original power steering. It's still got the original water pump. It's still got the original alternator. The original air conditioner. Sure, it doesn't have the original battery. I mean, that's part of wear and tear, right? But it's still got the original radiator, too. But interestingly enough, although a lot of them here are made in Indiana, not this limited edition, as you can see, it was made in Japan. I don't want to put down the boys in Indiana. They do a pretty good job, but this is a Japanese one, and they do a better job. That's just the way it goes with Japanese vehicles. Now, realize one thing. It's a large vehicle, carries a lot of people. Combined, it gets 18, 19. You got 21 coming over here on the highway. You want a big vehicle. Hey, for what it is, it gets okay gas mileage. Just the way all the big Toyota stuff is. If you think that's bad, get yourself a Sequoia or a Land Cruiser, and you'll wish you'd have the mileage of this thing. Now, why do they sell so many? Obviously, it doesn't break down. It's limited. Look at the leather. Still in excellent shape, even though it's got almost 250,000 miles on it. And talk about leg room. You know, this is not a legless car that only tiny people can fit in. They're comfy. Now, as we open the back, got third row seating. You can pop up if you want. Granted, it's a little bit cramped in the back, but you know, that's not what this was really made for. This thing isn't competing with Suburbans that you can fit the circus and the elephant in. It's made to carry a bunch of people comfortably, and if you have to carry some smaller children in the back, you can pop those up and they can sit in the back. It's got all-wheel drive on it, front and rear. And that accounts for the somewhat lower gas mileage. If you're really into gas mileage, get a two-wheel drive one. A lot of people don't really need four-wheel drive. As you can see, it's got the hill climbing, it's got the snow, so if you get stuck in the snow, everything on it is really pretty well set up. It is a keyless ignition system, which I'm not a big fan of, but the Toyotas rarely break down. Now, as you can see, here's the real mileage, 218. And listen to that engine with 218,000. You can hardly hear anything. Contrast that to that Toyota that I checked out last year with the same basic V6 engine, and it was clanging away, and Toyota wouldn't admit there was a problem. Compared to the old ones, yes, it had a problem. And that's the problem with too much technology. This baby's got plenty of power, but does it have turbocharger? No. Does it have a GDI engine hiding under here? It has regular fuel injectors. So you know it's old, it's still quiet. He's put no money in it, just maintenance stuff. There's no way that these modern engines they're making today are gonna be as quiet as this, because the new ones are already making noise, and they're new, right? They don't have almost 250,000 miles. And they have technology that when it breaks, it's gonna cost a fortune to fix. Now, of course, eventually everything breaks. Here's the fuel injectors, real easy to change. On a GDI system, not so much. Does this thing burn oil? No, it doesn't burn oil between oil changes. He changes his oil with full synthetic every 5,000 miles. He doesn't listen to that crap about, oh, you can go 10, 12,000 miles, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, then they burn oil, right? This thing does not burn oil. He changes it every 5,000 miles. Oil is cheap. Engines are expensive. If you're the type of person that wants you to keep your car forever, you get a car like this and you take care of it. And as I said, the older ones, they're stronger than the newer ones. I wouldn't give a rat's behind for an extra 3-4 miles a gallon for an engine that's not gonna last this long. And you gotta buy another car. Like, oh, this gets phenomenal gas mileage. And then 10 years later, if you gotta buy another one, and then the prices of them are $60,000, $80,000, there goes your savings. Of course, it's a modern Toyota engine. It's got a timing chain. You don't have to mess around with a timing belt or any of that stuff. And you can see everything is readily accessible. Air filter. Mass airflow sensor, if it goes bad, you got to clean it or change it. It's right there. These are really well-designed vehicles. But, I mean, it's got everything you'd possibly need. You got heated mirrors, AC, sink. Now, it's older, so as you can see, the screen's a lot smaller. and the backup camera leaves somewhat to be desired, but I mean, really, he's a Lyft driver. He drives it all the time. Everybody's happy riding on. They know you get picked up with a Toyota, you're not going to get stranded somewhere. It's going to make it there and make it pretty good comfort in this big old SUV. So aside from lower gas mileage, you get a front wheel drive one, not all wheel drive. You get 2 or 3 miles a gallon better gas mileage. And if you really want to go modern, you can get a hybrid one like my son did with a hybrid Toyota, because then he gets 35 miles a gallon in town. You can add things on, but how long this thing is lasting with simple technology, maybe people should learn something from that. Instead of putting all this high technology in that sounds good on paper, but then when the rubber hits the road, to give you a personal example, I had a Lexus SUV last year. They said it was rated at 35 miles a gallon on a highway. It only had a 4-cylinder engine. It was turbocharged and it was all-wheel drive, right? So I drove it, Houston, San Antonio and back. Eco mode cruise control. Thing got like 21 miles a gallon. It was rated at 35. Total horse. They can say this new technology is going to get better gas mileage, blah, unless it's a hybrid. It's not true. And of course, with a hybrid, it's only true in stop and go traffic because it regenerates and it's more efficient. At highway speeds, it's no different than any other vehicle. It's just using the gasoline engine to run down the road. A lot of this technology is false promises. They say it's going to do something, but then you get it in the real world. Like the Ford Lightning pickup truck, it just came out, right? Now, it's no longer in the minions of Ford and their fantasy world. It's in real people's hands. A guy got one and he towed his Airstream trailer. Now, trailers are meant for traveling around the country, right? Going where you want. The guy got 80 miles, and that's all he could go. So much for the range of 300 miles or whatever. What do you get a truck for? To pull a trailer. If it can only go 80 miles, that kind of defeats the purpose of having an Airstream in the first place, unless you're going to go very close to your house and not go very far, maybe camp in your backyard. You know? The promise versus the reality, you always have to take that into effect if you're going to get yourself a car. And don't believe the fantasy that these people are trying to sell you, because they're just sales guys. They'll tell you anything to get you to buy it. Since this was based on a Camry platform, they really ride nice. Now compare this to a Toyota 4Runner. Everybody loves the 4Runners, right? They're almost all made in Japan, but it's a truck-based chassis. And they don't ride like this thing does. If you don't care and you're the type of guy that's want to have an all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive and you like a 4Runner, you're going to go out in the woods, go right ahead. But if you want to drive around in comfort, this is an infinitely better vehicle, because a 4Runner is a truck chassis. It's based on a truck. And it gets even worse gas mileage than this thing does. And interesting enough, as I said earlier, these things, a lot of them are made in Indiana, right? And they make good vehicles in Indiana too, but this particular one's made in Japan, and you can't beat a Japanese-made vehicle. And this one has spent its life in Massachusetts. You can tell the rust is coming on the American bolts that hold the license plate on. But when we go under the vehicle, that's a plastic cover. Even though it's lived in Massachusetts, solid as a rock. It's got the original exhaust system on it. And does the unibody sound bad? No, it doesn't. Rocker panels are still solid. All these years in Massachusetts, almost 250,000 miles, and it's still going strong. Now, there's a reason they started selling these in 2001 in the United States, and they're still making them, because people like them. It's a perfect SUV for somebody who wants something this size, doesn't care that much about gas mileage. It's not, oh, well, I got to make a different model. These things will probably keep making them into the future. And if they ever do go to electric cars, who knows? They'll certainly turn something like this into an electric car, but hey, let's face the facts. There's no infrastructure for that. And other than political fantasy, it's going to be a long time before people are actually driving electric cars, long range, millions of them. Where's the power going to come from? Where's the charging station going to be? That stuff is not going to exist for quite some time. But if it is, they'll probably turn one of these into an electric vehicle. Now, it's a big all-wheel drive vehicle, so it's not going to have any problem going over our big water hump here. You barely feel a thing because, like I said, this is not a truck chassis, and it rides a lot more like a car. Even on the rough road here, look, the steering wheel isn't wobbling much. It's still pretty smooth. It's a little wet, but it is all-wheel drive, so listen to that thing. You would never think this thing has almost 250,000 miles on it. It doesn't sound any different than a new one. Look, it idles like a dream. It doesn't shake. The air conditioning works perfectly fine. So here we go. A great ride. A great vehicle. You're looking for one. Maybe you don't want all-wheel drive. Maybe you'll go two-wheel drive. And the ones in Indiana, they're not bad. But if you can find a Japanese-made one like this, they're even better. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.